Since time immemorial, humanity has sought answers to the great questions of existence, our origin, purpose, and destiny. At the heart of this relentless quest, the Bible stands out not just as a historical record or a compendium of moral laws, but as a comprehensive narrative that weaves the story from the creation of the world to the prophetic visions of the end times. The Bible is divided into two main parts, the Old and New Testaments, offering a panoramic view of the human journey intertwined with divine action in history. Its pages reveal the interaction between the divine and the human, between the eternal and the temporal, providing a unique perspective on the human condition and the sovereignty of God. But what sets it apart from other great literary works is its impressive prophetic capacity. With 735 predictions about the future, the Bible establishes itself as a unique document, transcending the barriers of time and space. Of these predictions, 596 have already been fulfilled, a remarkable testimony to its accuracy and truthfulness. These predictions, or prophecies, are distributed throughout the biblical texts, from the promises made to the patriarchs in the Old Testament to the apocalyptic visions of the New Testament. The fulfillment of these prophecies is a subject of study in the fields of history and literature. For example, the prophecies related to the rise and fall of empires, like the prediction of the Babylonian captivity and the subsequent liberation of the people of Israel, demonstrate notable historical precision. Furthermore, the messianic prophecies detail the coming of a Savior or Messiah, fulfilled in the figure of Jesus Christ, with specific predictions about his birth, life, death, and resurrection. Accounts of the anticipation and fulfillment of these facts intrigue scholars and Christians. The second coming of Christ. The Bible predicts that Jesus Christ will return to earth to judge humanity and establish his eternal kingdom. This passage is cited in Matthew 24:30-31. Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then all the peoples of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. Armageddon. A final battle between the forces of good and evil will be fought, culminating in God's victory, mentioned in Revelation 16:16. Then they gathered the kings together to the place that in Hebrew is called Armageddon. The Millennium. A period of 1,000 years when Christ will reign on earth with peace and justice, mentioned in Revelation 21:6. They came to life and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy are those who share in the first resurrection. The second death has no power over them, but they will be priests of God and of Christ and will reign with him for 1,000 years. The resurrection of the dead. There will be a general resurrection of the dead, both the righteous and the unrighteous, mentioned in the books of Daniel 12:2, John 5:28-29, and also in Revelation 20:12-13. The dead were judged according to what they had done as recorded in the books. The sea gave up the dead that were in it, and death and Hades gave up the dead that were in them, and each person was judged according to what they had done. The final judgment. All people will be judged by God based on their actions and faith, mentioned in the passage of Matthew 25:31-46. But the most significant is in Revelation 20:11-15. Then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. The lake of fire is the second death. Anyone whose name was not found written in the book of life was thrown into the lake of fire. The new Jerusalem, God will create a new heaven and a new earth, where the saved will dwell with him forever. This passage is in Revelation 21:1-3. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. Universal peace. Mentioned in Isaiah 11:6-9, the prophecy that there will be an era of peace when the wolf will live with the lamb. In the passage, the wolf will live with the lamb, and a little child will lead them. They will neither harm nor destroy on all my holy mountain, for the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. The restoration of Israel. The nation of Israel will be restored, and the Jewish people will return to their land, fulfilling various Old Testament prophecies in the passage of Ezekiel 37:21-22. I will make them one nation in the land, on the mountains of Israel. There will be one king over all of them, and they will never again be two nations or be divided into two kingdoms. The gospel preached to the entire world. Before the end, the gospel will be preached throughout the world as a testimony to all nations. The passage from Matthew 24:14, and this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. The conversion of the nations. Entire nations will turn to God and be transformed, as mentioned in Isaiah 2:2-4. Will judge between the nations and will settle disputes for many peoples. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. The rise of the Antichrist. A powerful and deceptive world leader will emerge, opposing Christ and deceiving many, mentioned in Revelation 13 and also 2 Thessalonians 2:3-4. Don't let anyone deceive you in any way, for that day will not come until the rebellion occurs and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the man doomed to destruction. He will oppose and will exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God. The Great Tribulation. A period of unprecedented suffering and persecution for Christ's followers, cited in Revelation 7:14 and also in Matthew 24:21. For then there will be great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again. The seal of God on his servants. In Revelation 7:3-4, divine protection for those faithful to God during times of persecution is mentioned. Do not harm the land or the sea or the trees until we put a seal on the foreheads of the servants of our God. Then I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000 from all the tribes of Israel. The fall of Babylon. The destruction of a corrupt world system symbolized by Babylon, cited in the book of Revelation 18:20-24. With such violence, the great city of Babylon will be thrown down, never to be found again. The music of harpists and musicians, pipers and trumpeters, will never be heard in you again. No worker of any trade will ever be found in you again. The sound of a millstone will never be heard in you again. The light of a lamp will never shine in you again. Signs in the heavens. In Luke 21-25-26, unusual astronomical phenomena will be a sign of the last days, as mentioned. There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. On the earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity at the roaring and tossing of the sea. People will faint from terror, apprehensive of what is coming on the world, for the heavenly bodies will be shaken. The rapture of the church. The faithful will be taken to meet Christ, at some point related to his second coming, described in the passage, 1 Thessalonians 4:16-17. After that, we who are still alive and are left will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so we will be with the Lord forever. The revelation of the sons of God. Creation awaits the revelation of the sons of God, when they will be freed from corruption. Passage from Romans 8:19-22. We know that the whole creation has been groaning, as in the pains of childbirth, right up to the present time. 18. The end of death. Death will be the last enemy to be destroyed, as mentioned in 1 Corinthians 15-26. The last enemy to be destroyed is death, the unification of all things in Christ. All things in heaven and on earth will be brought together under Christ. Passage from Ephesians 1:10. To bring unity to all things in heaven and on earth under Christ. The complete dominion of God. God will be all in all, the culmination of the divine plan for creation. Passage from 1 Corinthians 15:28. When he has done this, then the Son himself will be made subject to him who put everything under him, so that God may be all in all. One of Jesus' teachings is the parable of the fig tree, a metaphor used to illustrate the importance of recognizing the signs of the times. Just as the budding of the fig tree's leaves signals the approach of summer, Jesus instructs his disciples to interpret the signs that precede his return. These signs include natural, social, and spiritual events that have been prophesied in the scriptures. Natural signs, such as earthquakes, famines, and pestilences, were mentioned by Jesus as part of the signs. These natural phenomena, often intensified, serve as reminders of human fragility and the need for greater understanding. Social and political signs, such as wars, international conflicts, and persecutions against Christians, were also highlighted as indicators of the end times. These events reflect the turbulence and instability that will characterize the period before Christ's return. Spiritual signs, such as the emergence of false prophets, the cooling of love, and the spreading of the gospel throughout the world, are also important signs. They point to the spiritual dynamics at play and the importance of faithfulness to the truth of the gospel. The uniqueness of the current times lies in how different signs are converging. Natural disasters, geopolitical changes, spiritual and social transformations, and the focus on Jerusalem are all manifesting in ways that seem to align with biblical prophecies. This convergence is seen as a stronger indicator than any single sign. Jesus described the beginning of these events as the beginning of birth pains, an analogy to the labor pains that increase in intensity and frequency as birth approaches. Similarly, it is believed that the signs of the times will intensify as the second coming of Christ draws near. In light of this perceived imminence, there is a sense of urgency in spiritual preparation. This preparation is not just about recognizing the signs, but also about living according to Christ's teachings, cultivating faith, love, hope, and compassion. For Christians, this is a time to reaffirm faith, practice vigilance, and strengthen the community of believers. The proximity of Christ's second coming is also a call to active testimony and service. Preaching the gospel to all nations, caring for the needy, seeking justice, and promoting peace are seen as essential components of the Christian mission in this era. And may we Christians have divine wisdom to live according to God's will, and when the time comes, be prepared for the final judgment.